bookhos, we are talking about getting my dark garden corset refitted. But we're also going to be talking about the meaning behind my clothes, and I think it's really important to think about the meaning and investment that we put behind things. Hello and welcome to Book Hoarding by Bianca. Today we are talking about corsetry. Now I know when people typically do history of corset, it's like the history of this corset and history, like the foundations, like how it was made. I'm talking about specifically my custom corset and the life cycle that it's had. I think it's kind of important and it's really special to me, and I think that there are a couple of things about the story that might, I don't know, feel empowering people and give meaning to their own clothes. I feel like it's really important for us to think about the meaning behind our clothes, especially in a world where meaning and everything also has a lot of ties to how we think about fast fashion and how that's really like antithetical to having thought into our clothing. Because if we're just throwing away clothes every like 6 to 9 months, then we're not really thinking about stuff. We're not living sustainably and we're not investing in our garments. And I feel like a lot of historical costumers or just costumers and cosplayers feel like our garments are investments, not only because we made them, but even the ones that we buy or commission. So to reinforce that, I'm going to talk about my custom corset. Because for me, it's not just memories, it's also that I put, time and money and a lot of, other garments behind this one foundational garment. Let's start the tale at the beginning. I had always wanted a dark garden corset. I had actually always wanted just a custom corset because growing up, I love period dramas, right? But also a foundational part of period dramas and period costumes are the foundations, aka the corsetry, the underthings. And as much as I could just, kind of fake it with, like, I'd get vintage slips and wear that as the kind of chemises, I couldn't really fake a corset. And I had bought a couple online that people had kind of recommended. This was before I knew what red threaded too, I want to say. But I bought some and they just never fit me because I have a short torso. I am like a little under 5'2". I'm not that tall, but I'm very curvy. So because of my weird sizing and everything, I kept getting corsets that as soon as I would sit up, they would just dig deeply into my thighs, or it'd be really uncomfortable to sit up because they just were too long for me. Everything was too long. I think underbusts were kind of the only thing that would work because you could kind of shift them around a little bit. They were typically a little bit more waspy than like long line. I had always wanted a dark garden corset. I think also part of me was really, really into it because I knew like there were certain costumers and authors that I followed that were really, really fans and talked about how those corsets were just so good for them. And I'm talking about like costumers who like work all day in their corsets, who do shows in their corsets. I knew like other fellow burlesque dancers at the time, like were investing in those for specific big shows or doing custom pieces with them. So I knew this was a big investment, and it took me a while to really be like, this is a thing that I'm going to stick with and I want this custom corset to fit me. In January 2017, I went in for a fitting at Dark Garden for a custom corset. And I even, had gone and tried on their regular things. But when I went in finally to be like, you know what, I'm just going to get a custom one. It's actually really tied to like me and my husband's relationship. Dark Garden was located in this little cool alleyway in Hayes Valley in San Francisco. There's now one in New Orleans, but I've only gone to the San Francisco one for my garment fittings. I have visited the one in New Orleans, and it's really, really cool, and it's a lot of some of the same people and a lot of, the same styles and everything, but my corset story is centered in San Francisco. So the San Francisco shop in Hayes Valley is in this really cute area because there's a chocolate shop around the corner, and that area is kind of like our favorite date spot, me and my husband's. And we had just started dating in January of 2017, and our first date had been right around the corner from Dark Garden. It was almost a disaster that was going to happen. The TLDR is that I wanted us to go to a coffee shop. I didn't realize that the coffee shop I was going to, that I told him to meet me at, was actually like kind of outdoors, and he was kind of like sick at the time. So he got there before me, and he quickly was just like, hey, I found a better place, and it was a chocolate shop. So our first date was at a chocolate shop. Knowing this was a special place for us, we decided, we'd go there frequently, like to the chocolate shop, and it was kind of in between our places location. He argues that it was not closer to me, and I'm like, no, it was closer to you. Anyway, and we would go to this chocolate shop, and I was like, you know what? I finally like have a bunch of savings I put away for this corset. Let's go do this thing. I want to do it. I'm excited. So one of our dates was actually one of our first dates, like in the first month of us dating, was going to Dark Garden for me to get a fitting. And so what they did was they put I got the Victorian cut, their Victorian cut, because they have different names for different cuts and styles. And so I got their Victorian one because I knew it was like the more kind of classic looking corset, but also one I'd probably get a lot of use of because of historical costuming stuff I was doing. I was doing a lot of things with my local costume guild. So I got a fitting, and they put me into their Victorian that was, you know, the closest to fit me. I think they actually put me in a couple of them just to kind of get an idea of like variation because of, you know, my proportions. And then once they were like, okay, so this one fits you everywhere except for down here, they took the time, like they had me also sit in it for a while and like adjust and do everything. And then they made, they took measurements and everything to figure out how, you know, much to bring it up and all those things. And it was great. And I think because I was just getting a custom thing that was just a variation, like a modification of an existing design, my fitting was a little different than like if you had a custom corset that was like from top to bottom, they'd have to make a whole design for it. So it was just really cool and really great. And something really special about that was that at the end of my date, Frank put me in the car and he was just okay, like I'll see you later, you know, as I left in my Uber. And then he says that he went right back to the store because it was just it was in January, and they had said, oh, it'll be like around like February 17th that it's ready. And so I guess he went back and he told them like, hey, is there any way that you could have this ready by February 14th or Valentine's Day so that we could like have a cute little Valentine's Day gift? And he also like added on to my order, and he paid for all this. He added on matching red garters that attach to the corset and the garter belt, and so he added on the extra garters to match it. And I thought that was really, really sweet. So that was his like early Valentine's Day gift to me that I didn't even know was a thing until it was like, hey, your corset's ready, and hey, here's these garters. And I'm like, I didn't pay for these. And he's like, it was me. So that was really sweet and really special. So since 2017, I actually wore this for a ton of things. I wore it like undergarments, I wore it over things, you know, for steampunk things, just because it's just beautiful. Like, it's this beautiful red corset. And it's also just honestly a great back brace. As like I was getting older and into my 30s, there were a couple times where like I would have like pulled my back a bit, so having the ability to just put on something that like immediately stabilizes it. Like low-key right now I'm wearing it mostly because I need to film this video, but also my hip has been a little achy because of like an old injury flare-up. So it's been really nice to just feel like I can like just let my back kind of be supported really nicely. Where do we go from 2017 to 2022? I think the big thing is that my body has changed a bit, and my body has fluctuated in size and shape, and specifically it was that I have had weight gain, and I've had my belly's a bit bigger than it was before. I feel like I'd heard other people talking about how they'd gotten corsets resized. I know I had a friend who was talking about it, and I was like, wait, that's a thing you can do? You can just like go get an adjustment. And I knew it wasn't going to be like a garment, right? Because there's so many layers and so much really intentional structure to it that you can't just like cut into a corset and do a bunch of stuff. It's going to be very different. So I was thinking about how I really wanted to get back into doing costuming and everything, but because my corset didn't fit me anymore, I was kind of a little self-conscious about everything, because like I can alter, you know, some of my garments, and I always included extra seam allowance and I always have, you know, extra piecing and everything in case I need to add things, because hashtag sexy wedge. But also I was a little self-conscious, to be honest, about how like I couldn't fit into my classic like corset that I'd spent all this money on, that like I was really, really tied to emotionally. And I know that like Dark Garden has a rummage sale, but I just didn't want to really part with this because it just felt really special to me. So knowing that they could do resizing, I was excited about that. So I had that on kind of my agenda of 2022, let's take some time and figure out how you can get resized. Lucky for me, in January, they posted on their Instagram that they were going to do a store credit giveaway, and I was really, really excited about it. So I entered with my cool little like Wonder Woman thing that I wore, and you can see the photo here with me and Frank where we went to a themed ball together, and so I had it on over my Wonder Woman dress. So I was really excited, and I entered, and I was just like, okay, let's just see if the off chance I win. So I did. I won, and I was really excited, and my first thing was, hey, can I make an appointment to use this to see if my corset can get resized? And I think that's the big thing, is that I trusted these folks to do like the due diligence to see, can my corset get resized in the first place? Because I think that was my first question. And then if it can, that's what I would invest in. And if it can't, I was going to think of like, do I want to invest in a new corset? Do I want to put like the store credit toward the new corset? What do I want to do? March, I went in to get my custom refitting. And so basically what they did was they put the corset on me as much as they could. Then they undid the lacing, and they relaced it to like widen it as much as possible until it did fit onto me. So that meant there was a massive gap in the back, but they also spent a lot of time doing a lot of really specific adjustments to see, does this actually still fit me in a way that makes sense? So they adjusted it back and forth on my body a bunch of times, and like basically wanted to make sure like this still aligned front and that these seams still worked and still made sense for like those curves. And I guess I'm squishy enough that like this area still worked. And if this had been a little different, I would have probably needed an adjustment in the front where they would have needed to add space here. But what happened was, after adjusting and saying that like this still staying center also meant that my bust was still in the correct place, amongst other things. Like there was a ton of little adjustments and everything that we did to make sure that like basically adding stuff to the back, adding 2 more panels to the back would be the right thing. But it was just like a really cool process to be part of, and to see like, hey, how can we make this still fit you and still work for you? And it was great. It was fun. And basically it was decided that there should be 2 little laced up panels added to the back. And the benefit too of that is that like it's really exciting to me, because if I ever do fluctuate back in weight, that's a thing that could be theoretically removed and then relaced, and I can just have it back to where it was before. But what's really cool to me is now I have these adjusted spaces in the back that allows for my fluctuated body. So I left my corset with them in March, and then in June they called me and it was ready, and I got to pick it up and I'm wearing it now. So I just wanted this to be a kind of story that really highlights like trusting people and getting custom stuff done and investing in certain garments that mean something, and that you have the like money to do so is really like a thing that can be really worth your while. I always suggest to researching folks that you're going to be doing that kind of custom work with. I knew from multiple people that this was going to be a place I could trust to do this work. And then also when you're doing this stuff, don't try to adjust these things yourself before going back to the people. Like if you know that you're going to go back to them to get it customized, whether it's Dark Garden or anywhere else, I would say just like don't try to adjust it yourself, because it can be really bad, especially with these specialty items. Like I'd even say like having an understanding of patterning myself, I'm like, I wouldn't want to cut into someone else's work because I don't really know the things they did. I might have made a bunch of dresses, but if I don't really know how someone else did theirs and their construction and their patterning, I wouldn't exactly know immediately like the best places to, you know, go into the guts of this. And a corset especially is such a custom garment that like I would never have cut into my stuff and started trying to like change it around or do anything. Anyway, I'm just really glad that like this worked out for me, and I just want folks to know that like this is a thing. Anyway, I thought this was really special and really important to think about, because I know that I'm not the only one who's probably had a little bit of body changes and fluctuations, but I don't think it should prevent you from being able to, you know, keep enjoying your hobby. So I hope that like that's empowering to folks to think about like, hey, this is a wardrobe that like I've invested in and that means a lot to me. How can I continue to make use of it? Because I think in a time where we're talking so abundantly about reusing and making things long lasting and investing in our clothes, this is really important to me. Like this is a garment that really like once it's off me and it's like in its little bag, it's not very big, but it still has a big impact on me. And it's the foundational garment for all of my Victorian things that fit to this. So I hope you enjoyed this fun story about a custom fitting. It was really important to me just to share that like this is a thing that can be done, and there's no shame in like asking for help and getting adjustments made. And I hope that if you do have custom things that you've been thinking about getting altered to fit you in the way that your body might have changed over the last few years, I say like, you know, know that like it's a thing that other people are asking for. It's a thing that shouldn't be outside the realm of capability to even consider for folks. Like there's definitely a possibility that like this wouldn't have fit me still, and that's fine. But I also think that like most places are going to be really down to at least work with you to try to see if it'll fit you and what the solutions can be for fitting or for refitting garments. Yeah, so I think that's like about it. I just wanted to like say thank you so much, Star Garden. Like, they didn't pay me for any of this extra promo. I just wanted to say, like, y'all are make really great corsets. And again, like, this corset has meant a lot to me personally in terms of just, like, being kind of hallmark of my relationship and a cool thing that, like, we've taken to a lot of events. And I've worn for a lot of events with my partner. So I just wanted to keep it going and keep it in my life. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I hope this has been at least entertaining. If you are not yet a patron, check it out. I have multiple tiers. All have access to my Discord server, and certain tiers get early access to other little goodies. Also, your support helps me with fashion school, so check out my coffee if you can't join Patreon. You can leave me a tip there. Thank you for joining me, and don't forget to make it so.